everyone, and welcome to another edition of TEDXcellence, the show in which we find out why the sky is falling. And I'm told it's because of how much sun I'm getting. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and joining me today from the equally sunny side of the country, left coast is the best coast, Gino Maurino.
Hey there, Scribe. How's everyone doing today?
Yes, hello everyone. We are here today to inform and entertain. I like to call it infotainment. So, Gino, you come to us because, well, you suggested it, and I was like, okay. So all the pressure's on you.
Perfect.
If you're not entertaining, this is never happening again. And this is an experiment for anybody else that I might consider having on in the future who isn't an established YouTuber. So, good luck.
Yay, pressure.
Yay! Pressure creates diamonds.
All right.
Yeah, well, it's true. So, Gino, for those out there who do not know who you are or what you do, tell them whatever you're comfortable telling them about yourself in this moment.
Sure thing. I'm Gino Maurino. I'm a California union electrician. I'm on Twitter, Doomboy13. And I like politics and got in a motorcycle accident in September and going to be out of work for, as I've learned now, 8 months to a year from a month from now. So, doing anything to fill my time and keep busy.
Yes, Gino is the first recipient of the Moonbase Make-A-Wish Foundation gift of coming on to the show. Yes. So if you want to get on the show, guys, all you have to do is get into a horrific car accident. I'm kidding.
Yay!
I'm really kidding. That is not true. That is all facetious. But that being said, what do we have on the deck for today? Well, we are going to learn about how climate justice can't happen without racial justice.
Fun.
What is climate justice? Well, I don't know because I've heard various interpretations. What is racial justice? Well, I don't know. I had a actual written definition given a couple of TEDx's back, but even then I felt it was kind of thin. But before we get into that, who all is joining Gino and I today for this wonderful adventure? That would be Lady Gopher, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Adonis Bartole, hello. Somnamnum Nation, hello. Keenan, hello. Zalbla, hello. Sean Uli, hello. Scanner Daphne, hello. Humble Clay, hello. Nathaniel Taylor, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Dina B, hello. Quinn the Cultist, hello. Spyro Girl, hello. Spyro Girl. I don't know. St. Michael, hello. Keeverdam, hello. That one sort of Stania, hello. Spider-Man, hello. Insulted 25, hello. Does that mean you're insulted 25 times or you're just 25 years old and been insulted?
25% insulted.
Okay. Taslim Hassan, hello. Aether Toast, hello. Cal Ken L, hello. GC Wade Waleson. You keep changing your name. I'm assuming the GC is Gulf City.
I would hope.
All those Gulf City cultists and everything. Coded Perfection, hello. Sabian 187, hello. Duck Dog, hello. Test Subject number 305, hello. Are you part of the Weapon X project or anything? Bruno Montiero, hello. Zach Osborne, hello. Andrew James, hello. Jedi Ghost Bear, hello. Mike Savage. Greetings, St. Michael. Mike Savage, you've broken the pattern. The Matrix has had a glitch because of you. Slovenly Gulf City American, Non-Vitae Rex, Duck Dog. I feel like I can't quite. And Frosted Glass says sodium. Okay, good. And Brittany Holland, hello. Anyway, all that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Functional, hello. Keeverdam has said blarg. Everybody compensate for Mike Savage having broken the Matrix by saying blarg in the chat right now. Just say blarg, and we'll get it out of the way. We'll make up for Mike Savage having broken the... Unless when chat jumped, I missed Mike saying it earlier. He did! Oh, that was my... Okay, that's when chat jumped. I apologize. No One Nowhere, Green Death, I missed you as well. Roger Reynolds as well. That was the overlap between the jump and the chat. Regardless, say blarg, which is a hi to Mike Savage. Mike, I apologize. I cleanse you of your sin that I created out of whole cloth. I apologize. Okay, that all being said, let's get into it. Any preconceived notions before we get into this, Gino?
I refuse to have a preconceived notion about anything.
Well, that is very professional of you. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people, Gino and Scribbles. Don't worry. I'm speeding towards that intersection as you speak. Save me a spot on the show. Don't do that.
Don't recommend this, please. No.
I don't want anyone, either now or in the future, to believe that I was actually meaning that for serious. I was not. Pinky swear I was not. Joke.
Highly against this.
It's a joke. Yeah. Ask Gino if you need a living example of what not to wish for in such a way. Gino knows.
It's pain, man. Fingers don't work anymore.
Yeah. Don't do it. Bad. Kids, there's your public service announcement. Look both ways before crossing the street. Mind the speed limit. You follow the rules. If somebody doesn't, best of luck. But yeah, distance and patience. Anyway, moving on to the wonderful world. Okay, so this TEDx talk, such as it is, clocks in just under 10 minutes, a relatively short one. I believe I've heard the name of this person before, David Lammy, I think it is. I've heard that in reference to British politics at some point in the distant past. I don't know from who. It might have been Sargon or something. So I don't know.
He's a Labour politician. Asian hippie got it earlier.
There you go. That's all I know about the guy. All right. So with that, start off with a few seconds for sound test. Tell me if you guys can hear this. I think there's some manufactured applause, and then we get into it. So here we go.
I've got to start by admitting that in many ways, me giving a talk about how climate action can help Black communities is surprising.
If you say so. I don't know why it is surprising, but you guys can hear that okay? Let me know. It says Asian Hippie says sounds good.
Sounds good over here.
Yeah, I figure if you can hear it, then probably everybody else can hear it, but I always want to make sure just on the off chance of something else going on. Yep. Some ammunition says Lammy is one of Sargon's faves. When I saw the name, and honestly, I didn't remember actually looking at the name until this morning when I set this up. I was like, I know that name. Why do I hear Sargon's voice when I read that name? So he must have brought him up at some point in some video in the past. I actually haven't watched a Sargon video in...
It's been a couple of years for me, actually.
At least a year. I mean, the last time I remember watching a Sargon video had something to do with his run for UKIP. And
that is a bit back.
Yeah, that's a while back now. I mean, time flies even. When you're... So, it's been a while. But regardless, okay. So he couldn't imagine having a talking about this. All right.
I grew up poor and Black with a single mother in Tottenham, one of the most deprived areas in London.
Okay.
That's unfortunate.
That's an old picture. Okay.
And look where he's at now.
Well, I mean, hey, successful politician. No skin off the nose there.
Yeah. Climate change was the last thing on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And representing Tottenham as its Member of Parliament for the past 20 years, my focus has been on trying to reduce the deprivation I grew up around.
I wonder how successful he's... I have no idea. I don't know anything about British politics. So
I imagine it's a general goal for most people.
Well, yeah, and the ways in which to achieve that, of course, varies from party to party and person to person. If there's anybody in the chat who is UKdom or Britbong or anything else, if you guys have any information on like his success rate or his popularity, I'm just curious.
Anything that's actually had an immediate affection.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep an eye on chat as I watch, but...
I got an eye on it.
Okay.
In the past, the climate crisis never featured at the forefront of my politics because it was never one of the most immediate challenges my constituents are facing.
And now it is?
Suddenly.
I guess.
Or at least it didn't feel like it.
Uh-huh.
Rising sea levels feel unimportant when your bank balance is falling.
Agreed.
How much have the sea levels actually... I don't know. I mean...
I've seen this fluctuate. I've seen a back and forth of sea levels going up and going down based on who and where it's being recorded.
Okay. Yeah, full disclosure, if it was needed, I am not a climate scientist. I haven't actually paid attention to this to the degree that, say, Ranting Monkey has. I think Ranting Monkey knows a lot more about the climate theories and such than I do. But but okay. If you say so. Thank you, Havoc Vladimirovich Stalinov. Maybe I missed it because I'm late, but what is climate justice? Oh, and
working on that.
Zadrzvz scribbles in chat. I assume that's some kind of Russian.
Здравствуй.
You know Russian?
Nope.
Oh.
But I know how to pronounce it.
Okay, because I know a phrase in Russian. Хочешь яблочный пирожок, гражданин? That purportedly says, would you like an apple cake, citizen?
It's useful.
Why do I know that? Why do I know that? Well, I had a coworker who spoke Russian, and every morning I would often like make a trip to Starbucks, and there was one person there who always asked for an apple fritter. And so I asked my coworker, I said, how do I say, would you like an apple fritter, my friend, or something like that? And they gave me this. I had to write it down phonetically, like I ended up having to do with Scottish Gaelic when I was learning from Tail.
That's how I learned Japanese.
Yeah, so then I learned how to say that one phrase in Russian, according to my coworker. Now, how accurate that is or how well I pronounced it, don't know. But that's the best I could do. Anyway, okay, so back to the subject at hand. All right, so climate change is now relevant because water levels are rising, sea levels are rising, and bank balances aren't as important, or they were superseding. Okay.
Global warming is not your concern when you can't pay the heating bills.
That makes sense. Yeah, most people are selfish.
Actually, global warming might be a benefit if you can't pay the heating bills, because then
there you go, makes everything hotter.
Yeah, I mean, silver linings, thinnest thing. Yeah.
And you're not thinking about pollution when you're being stopped by the police.
Right. Okay. Did you say stopped or stalked?
Stalked, I think. They're following him around.
Let's back up a couple seconds just because.
Yeah, let's.
Oh, sorry. Scarlett, we're using the bingo card, right? Yes, sorry. The bingo card. Links in the description. I completely forgot. I'm a little off because A, I've got a guest, and B, I thought Mike Savage didn't say blarg. So my whole mental track is off right now. It's
true. It's Mike's fault.
Let's see. Let's go over the bingo card real quick. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic. Not yet. Systemic institutional. I don't think he's
working on it, but not there yet.
Equity, new. Childhood or family anecdote. Well, he talked about his childhood, so that applies. Let me circle that one. Yes, thank you, Kiefer Dam. Like I say, got a little off track there. Childhood or family anecdote, which also means free space, is circled. Toxic. He talked about pollution, but
I don't think it's that type of toxic.
Plays victim, not explicitly yet. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, no. Privilege, not yet. Contradicts own point or argument, well, we haven't heard it yet. Patriarchy, no. Weightless example, no examples yet. Wage gap, no. I mean, he's talked about finances and things, but not the wage gap.
Not the wage gap in particular.
Yeah. Feminism, no. Marginalization. We'll get there, I'm pretty sure.
I'm
something to it. A list, not yet, but I'm probably sure. White supremacy, not yet. Word salad, not yet. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I have
working
a feeling.
On it.
Yeah, if you're going to tell me that that racial justice affects climate science or something, then we're going to get there. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, nope. Mind reading assumes motives, not yet. Benevolent condescension, not yet. Anecdote that probably never happened, no anecdotes yet. And leaves out vital context, no context to be given. So that's where we're at right now. The only ones circled, guys, are childhood or family anecdote and free space. Others stand by.
And you're not thinking about pollution when you're being stopped by the police.
Stopped.
It's stopped. It's
double P.
An accent.
It's a lovely accent.
It's a wonderful one.
I like that accent. A lot of my friends have that accent.
And so perhaps this is why, as the Black Lives Matter movement roared across the world, there's been so little mention of saving Black lives from the climate emergency.
Well, I'll correct you there in that I've been hearing about climate justice entwined with racial justice actually long before this year.
Yep.
So it's not the first time that I've heard this theory. In fact, I think I've done a few videos on the same. So, well, I mean, maybe you're being hyperbolic, but that's not actually true. But I mean, average citizen probably doesn't pay attention to the same things I do. So,
is Black Lives Matter going across the world? I know it's seen in Britain a little bit, and definitely over here in the U.S. But
since it's not an official organization and just sort of a movement, anybody who says that they are technically can be, I suppose. And there have been Black Lives Matter protests in Britain, in Australia, all over the place. I've seen pictures and reports from all over. So, sure, Black Lives Matter is, for all intents and purposes, a worldwide movement at this point.
Acceptable.
For too long, those of us who cared about racial justice treated environmental justice as though it was elitist. And at the same time, the leaders who did focus on climate change were usually white.
Oh, okay. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now that they are focusing on so they were focusing on climate change before you were, but their race matters because why? I mean, if it is important to you now, it was important then.
Isn't it important to matter whoever's doing it?
Yeah. What does it matter that they were white?
And rarely bothered to enlist the support of Black voices in their work.
General.
What exactly would that have looked like, and why? You see, if they weren't making it a racial issue but just a human issue, why would they need to specify who they were asking for support in that or trying to bring awareness to?
Right, because it's the human race, that whole thing,
Thank you, Asian Hippie. He is one of the reasons I stopped voting Labor. Oh, okay. Asian Hippie, I guess I should have known by the prefix on your donations. This is me just like, oh yeah, Asian Hippies from Britain or thereabouts. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, I don't know anything about him, but so far he's really shining bright. So yeah, climate change as an Earth human issue wasn't being specified by race, strangely enough. And so now you're complaining about the fact that race was not an ingredient in discussions on climate science or climate change.
I see that a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting. Tell me more.
Even progressive allies sometimes took our votes for granted and assumed that our community didn't care or wouldn't understand.
That sounds like condescension.
Were they taking you for granted because they thought you shared the same values or because of your race?
Or is it a split focus thing? Like, is not fully focusing on this mean we're ignoring it?
I'm getting ready to circle word salad.
I'm getting close.
But I'm going to circle plays victim because he wasn't paying attention to the subject. Other people were, and now in hindsight, the people that were have the wrong skin color and weren't like. It sounds to me like you did not take the problem seriously, and so you effectively chose not to participate. And now you're complaining that you were not invited to participate by white people who would have been telling you what to focus on, which I'm sure you would have been a big fan of.
I always find it interesting where people need this invitation in order to do something themselves as well. This might even be mind reading.
Assumes motives. Assumes motives because he's making it about race when the whole subject matter is just human.
It's the world.
Quality of life, effectively, for people.
Right.
All right. So plays victim, mind reading, assumes motives, and makes something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. All right. So there are others on the board that we might get to here quickly, but we'll see.
The truth is, the opposite is true. Black people breathe in the most toxic air relative to the general population.
Toxic? Oh my gosh. Relative to the general population. Okay, I'm going to back up a bit because I cut him off, but okay. Everybody breathes in the air.
Yeah, the air doesn't change based on the demographic of the area, as far as I'm aware.
The demographic, no. What's going on in the area? Sure,
I can see that.
But okay, tell me more.
The most toxic air relative to the general population.
Yeah.
We are more likely to suffer from respiratory diseases like asthma. And it is people of color who are more likely to suffer in the climate crisis.
Why? That actually brings up another thing. Isn't the worst air quality in the world in China and India?
Well, that's the thing. I think about China when it comes to air quality stuff, because I had a friend who, several years ago at least, it's probably worse now, she went over there to teach English. Mm-hmm. And she was over there for, God, I want to say like 8 months or something. And she came back, and as far as I understood at the time, I'm hoping it's better now, but she came back with the most terrible constant case of bronchitis ever. Like, and before she left, she didn't have any kind of problems whatsoever.
Right. And the thing is with bronchitis too, it opens you up to other respiratory issues once you get it.
That's the problem too. So you want to talk about air quality affecting racial demographics. It really depends on the country. It's not targeting individual racial demographics. Thank you, Drew W. 51% of black in America live in cities. Sure,
why not?
And so do a whole bunch of other kinds of people. Everybody breathes in the air. The air is not targeting you. The climate is not targeting you based on race. So if you've got some more
not hunting for you like the coronavirus is.
Right. So
that's what I've been told.
Right. So tell me, I need some more I'm going to circle leaves out vital context if I don't get some information on how specifically this is working.
This is no coincidence.
Oh, it's not a so it's a conspiracy?
Oh, it's planned. Ah.
Okay. Well, tell me about the system of something. I need another square circle on my board.
The cheapest housing tends to be next to the busiest roads, and many of the lowest paid jobs are in the most pollutant industries.
Of course it is. It's the cheapest place to make large facilities, like apartment complexes.
So black people are poor, is what you're telling me.
People choose where they live. How dare they?
Well, not only that, but just sort of assuming it's like, well, obviously this is affecting black people because, as we all know, black people are poor. So benevolent condescension.
I'm going to say, yeah, benevolent condescension right there.
Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. David Lammy is a famous UK hate peddler. He criticized UK's biannual comic relief fundraiser as white aid to Africa. Donations plummeted, and he claimed it a win. I'm already sad. Really?
That's disgusting, actually.
Well, I'm more amazed that this guy, if Tickletrunk's correct, that his criticism, this guy's criticism,
is what did it.
Is what diverted so much. Yeah, if he actually was responsible with it. Because A, if he is, wow, this guy's got a lot of power. And B, wow, what a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't any assistance or help or aid be a good thing, no matter who the race of the people are?
Well, and yeah, for that, and then back to the point, Wikipedia says very clearly it's a class issue, not a race issue. Yeah, you just said the poorest communities. So it has nothing to do with the color of skin. It's got everything to do with where you sit on the income level. So why are you making it about race? If you want to make it, I mean, if you made it about class, then it's like, okay.
I'd understand a class argument for it then.
Yeah, a class argument makes sense because then it's like, okay, well, these areas of the country have excessively higher pollution rates because the people involved or the people, selling homes in those areas downlist the prices, et cetera, and so forth. The people who can't afford any better are forced effectively economically to live in these places. Okay, you got me sold. You got me sold on that. But by doing race, you're completely dividing the issue and just avoiding the actual problem.
Almost ignoring the issue, actually.
All right.
People of color consistently lie at the bottom of the housing, educational, and employment ladders.
Sometimes they do. And is that the grand conspiracy? How are you in your position, by the way?
How's he helping people?
This story connects black communities across the world, from London to Lagos to LA.
Really? Okay, a grand conspiracy. All right, so this is being intentionally done because you said it was no coincidence. All right, so you have some names, you have an organization, you've got something to tell me why a class issue is specifically a race issue, because obviously people of a certain race can only exist in a certain class, which is kind of racist.
It's pretty racist, and I notice most of this racial justice stuff tends to be, but
okay. So tell me more.
Black Americans are exposed to 56% more pollution than they cause. White Americans.
Whoa.
How's that measured?
Whoa. Okay, wait a second. All right, hold on. Now, I'm not a statistician here, but my understanding is Black Americans make up something to the effect of about 13% of the U.S. population.
Correct.
So if they make up a smaller percentage of the population than the combined of everything else, then yes, they are going to be exposed to more pollution than they cause just on the basis of numbers.
Yeah.
So you're not wrong. you're not wrong, but it's also
It's
not a
disingenuous argument.
conspiracy. Yeah. Then you could also say, well, what about Asian Americans? How much of a percent of last I knew, Asian Americans make up about 8% of the population in the U.S. Maybe it's gone up since the last time I looked it up. So that means that so that means that Asian Americans are exposed to approximately 1.5 times more pollution than they produce as compared to African Americans in the U.S. So does that make them more victims than Black Americans?
Well, and this isn't even the U.S. He keeps saying this is global. It goes from America to Britain to Laos. So
well, this one example was America, so I'm kind of like, okay,
right.
Well then, as you go down the line of demographic percentage, then there are victims that are in worse shape than the one that you're most focused on for some reason.
By the way, I think we missed it. He did use the word privilege earlier.
Did he?
Yeah, he was saying that it was a privileged point to be polluting when you're not in those racial demographics.
Oh, did he? Oh, I missed that. All right, privilege, circling that on the board.
Forgot that was on the list.
Thanks for catching that, guys. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Breathe 17% less air pollution than they produce.
Because they are a smaller percentage of the population.
Yeah.
And what do you mean produce air pollution? Are you talking about simply exhaling? Because technically carbon dioxide is air pollution. Technically. Right. I mean, we all produce air pollution.
And it creates oxygen.
Right. Well, yeah, that's why you want to have plenty of trees around to sort of take all that stuff in and
It gives a whole new meaning to the Black Lives Matter slogan, I can't breathe.
Oh. You're right. It does. It does. Except, truth be told, except in very limited instances like this one, I can't say I ever hear of climate justice being a regular talking point of Black Lives Matter. I could be mistaken. Maybe it's out there in the literature somewhere, but it's not exactly.
I can't remember what the group was in the UK, but that they were the more or less radical environmentalists that were over there, sitting on trains and such. And when the Black Lives Matter group movement started reaching into the UK, they started embracing that with their climate arguments. So they started mixing and interpolating it together.
I remember some group staging a protest at an airport or airports in Britain or something about this, but I don't remember what they were called.
Thank you, Zach Osborne. That's correct. Extinction Rebellion.
It's Extinction Rebellion. Oh, actually, I did there was a TEDx I did with a guy from the Extinction Rebellion who talked about that. That's who it was, right? Hey, thank you, Johnny Stoffel. ACAB, all cops are breathers. Well, I mean, but obviously the question is, what's the race of the cop? Because depending on that, they're either breathing well or they're breathing badly.
Yeah, it's harder based on how dark you are.
I guess. Yeah, Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, there was a TEDx I did a while back where it's an Extinction Rebellion representative or something was telling us about the journey of activism or whatever, and he brought up some ridiculous stuff back then. I forget what.
Oh, they're a hilarious group.
Oh yeah, no, I mean my favorite is the video where they're trying to spray blood from a fire truck onto a building, and then the tank explodes and they get covered in the fake blood. That was fun. Wikipedia
actually has a good discussion point there. We'd separate demographics by age, medical history, and job. Air pollution especially is difficult to isolate for statistics. Yeah, I don't know how we'd measure that other than just in an area.
And even then you'd have to look at individual effects. Like I know people who are ridiculously sensitive to air quality and other people who basically have asbestos lungs and they're fine. So
right. Like I work construction, and if we're grinding at concrete all day, we're getting that silica dust and concrete dust in our lungs, and you send a tendency a lot of people in the construction industry that have worse off respiratory systems getting older. Yeah. And that's not to say that makes pollution in the air okay regardless or something. It's just like I don't know how you measure that. Right. Thank you, Drew W. The majority live in cities, places where the air quality is the worst of the country. Yeah, because of traffic, because of exhaust, because of personal choice.
Personal choice. I mean, if you're smoking or if you're around people who smoke, if you're near an industrial area, whatever. Okay, anyway, so yes, your facts are, I guess, true in the sense if you look at it without thinking about the reality of statistics and population density. But okay, moving on.
We all rightly know the name of George Floyd, who was murdered by the police.
That is still at debate.
That's up in the air.
That is still at debate, but okay, sure.
But we should also know the name of Ella Kissy Deborah. Ella, a 9-year-old mixed-race girl from southeast London, was killed by a fatal asthma attack. Evidence.
It happens very often.
Okay, hold on a second. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Making a race argument in the UK shows his willful ignorance and his nefarious intentions. UK is all about class, poor North versus posh South. Yeah, the class system in the UK is always something that's always kind of fascinated me. Like it's this holdover from a very, it seems to me, at least as an American, and I understand
they
that
still have a lord system over there too, don't they?
Oh yeah, they still have the royalty and they still have lords and things. Although again, this is me speaking as an American. It feels much more window dressing now than it does as some kind of effective power structure. But the class system is still recognized in a lot of ways, both by your accent, where you come from, and so on. And so, yeah, the race as seen, again, it's a predicate. I'm speaking as an American observer here, so don't take me as a resident. But race always seemed far less an issue in Britain than class did.
Right.
And where you came from, your lineage, your accent said a lot about where you belonged on the social ladder of things. So
your appearance, the job you worked in, everything. It's just,
right. So it seems bizarre to me that there are individuals in the UK who seemingly want to create racial divides. Like, why would you want to create a different kind of divide in a society that already has its own ingrained divisions, unless divide and conquer is at the root of your intentions?
Well, you need a division in order to force anything to happen.
Right. Thank you, John Miller. So does climate change apparently not have a strong enough argument? We have to race issues to it, or add race issues to it. I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he's gotten to a point yet. But he's brought up a little girl. Okay, 9-year-old, I think he said, who died of an asthma attack, and she was mixed race. Okay, so did she only get half the pollution because of her skin color?
She got extra pollution because of her skin color.
And just. I do not mean to downplay the death of a child, obviously.
No.
Our speaker is making this argument, so I'm just curious as to where he's going to go with this.
Right.
Yes, this was caused partly by the unlawful levels of air pollution near her home.
Partly.
Once again, how do you prove this?
Yeah. How much is part?
And anyone with any respiratory issue is going to suffer more. If someone has a respiratory issue and they're smoking more, they're going to have more issues. Just in general, that's just how the science works for it.
Right. And so is the example here, and I'm looking at weightless example on the board just in case, because we don't know where it's going here.
Yep.
Is the implication here then that because part of her genetic makeup was, you said, I don't know what mixed race means, it can be anything, but okay, non-white, I guess, is the only way I can go with this, depending on where he ends up. Is the implication here that she would be alive if she weren't a particular skin color?
Or would she be alive longer if she was less? I'm trying to figure out where he's going here.
Yeah.
And it's not only urban areas where Black lives...
Oh, that's it?
Weightless example there.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that happened. There's nothing about that story that makes me think, oh, that's impossible. But
he gave a name. I'm going to believe it.
He gave a name. I'll believe it for the sake of argument. But as far as like proving anything, I mean, if he comes back and picks it up later, maybe. I mean, you can have, okay, just for reference sake, you can have a bad example in a TEDx.
It's not weightless.
That is not weightless. I mean, it might be relevant to your argument, even if it's a bad example. But this one, he just moves on from it like that. Like, nah, dude, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Are disproportionately under threat from climate change.
How do you know?
Disproportionate.
My parents' home country of Guyana is one of the most vulnerable countries on Earth to the effects of climate change.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know about the climate science in regards to Guyana. So
actually, I can see this. Let's say if there's factories and such there, like I could see a higher pollution rate.
Sure. Depending on what kind of technologies they make use of or what kind of environmental controls they have. Sure.
But the most, it's
But even that, if that, and we'll see what he says in a second, but if that is the case, that would be up to the sovereignty of that nation to regulate or manage.
Right.
They're not victims if they're doing it to themselves and making
Exactly.
choices with knowledge that would tell them otherwise. Yeah.
So far, Guyana has contributed relatively little to the climate emergency,
Relatively little. What does that mean?
but it's one of the countries facing the most serious threats from it.
How so?
While the annual carbon dioxide emissions per head in the United States is a staggering 16.5 metric tons, in Guyana, it's just 2.6.
Okay. Well, I mean, America outputs a lot more pollution. It's true.
You know,
We
and
have
that's one of the other things. I always hear with the climate arguments, the carbon dioxide issue. And when you talk to a regular scientist that's not a climate scientist, doesn't have a vested interest, I tend to notice that they list the positives and the negatives of carbon dioxide, not just the negatives if there's no positive to weigh it against.
Yeah. And given the number of people in this country, the number of people who own cars in this country, the amount of manufacturing we do in this country, I can believe that our carbon output, and actually I don't even have any reason to doubt it, obviously, is much higher than Guyana. Now, I don't know the population of Guyana off the top of my head, but I am assuming it is something less than 300 million people. I could be mistaken. So if you divide the carbon output of Guyana, which I'm guessing, again, I'm just guessing, does not have the same kind of industry or a number of automobiles, et cetera, and other things that might contribute to carbon output, plus people who, exhale the stuff. I'm guessing, yes, there is a smaller amount of carbon output per person in Guyana versus America. I believe that is true. What is that supposed to say? Thank you, Puddock. My parents are Guyanese, so I have just enough authority. Okay. Guyana has under 800,000 people.
Oh, that's nothing.
1/3 of it is mountains. Another third is the rainforest. 800,000 versus 300 million. Okay. David Lammy.
Those are not comparable.
You had better have a really good point to this, because you're not looking good so far.
It is a pattern repeated across the globe.
Just skipped it.
Yeah, you're right. A pattern repeated across the globe. Different countries have different population densities and thus different outputs of pollution or waste. You're right. Golly gee whiz, Batman! I had no idea. Okay, and that means what? How does the situation in Guyana producing less pollution than America, who has some good God, I don't know, 300% more people than Guyana is.
Also, he's making an argument not along a sea level rising type of argument, which according to in the chat Advocatus, most of Guyana's or Guyanans, whatever, live along the coast. I could see that being more of an argument than the air quality.
Okay, going back to the bingo card real quick. Leaves out vital context. What the heck does Guyana's output of carbon dioxide have to do with America's? Yep. Nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Not a thing. It's not connected.
Not a thing. I mean, it could also count as a weightless example, but he's not telling us. He's not telling us why that is relevant.
He's just saying it is.
Yeah. New buzzword, buzz phrase, no. A list, not yet. White supremacy, no. Word salad. I could see an argument for word salad, but I'm going to wait.
I want to wait till it's a little harsher.
Feminism, no. Marginalized, no. Wage gap, no. Microaggressions, patriarchy. Contradicts own point or argument.
Not yet. He hasn't.
I'm sure.
He hasn't really made a point.
Yeah, he hasn't really made a point or an argument yet, except, well, I mean, he said, like, everything's uneven based on race. And yet he keeps talking about class, keeps talking about population. Actually, he can't.
Actually, that's an interesting part. What's the racial aspect that's making it more? Because like if we're going to look at Africa, where it's a majority black, and as opposed to America, what's the racial thing that's the same between those two?
And why isn't Guyana like the most polluted place on the planet then? Mm-hmm. Because if it is race that's determining the quality of life and air conditioning, everything else, shouldn't the per person output in Guyana be effectively larger than the U.S.? Maybe I'm missing. Obviously, I'm missing something. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. You'd be surprised to know that the USA and UK have low carbon footprints compared worldwide. China or India are huge, more willful ignorance.
I would not be surprised.
I'm willing to admit my ignorance here. I don't know the end all be all of carbon output per country or based on class area and such. I don't know. So I'm relying on David Lammy to tell me. But even in the presence of my ignorance, a lot of what he's saying doesn't jive with what little I do know. Or just
actually going off of memory, even for that chat there, U.S. Our highest carbon output, what I believe was 2008. We're down 12.1% this year or last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but we have initiatives in place to reduce how much carbon we're producing, find more green solutions, and so on. And I got no problem with finding ways that reduce pollution but still maintain the quality of life. Sure, that's great. And China and other countries that are still moving towards the same kind of industrial technology, or at least policies or cultural changes that are necessary to change that. Great. I mean, I mean, I'm not a big fan of China, but there's supposedly initiatives in China to reduce their pollution output over time as well by changing to different kinds of energy. So yeah, I mean, if we could power the world with wind and solar and fusion, I'd be fine.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm all for this. Anything to get us on the moon quicker.
Absolutely.
And sustainability on the moon quicker. Okay.
Those countries that have contributed least to the climate breakdown, mainly in the global south, will suffer the most from floods, droughts, and rising temperatures.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So now we're bringing it.
Okay, so what's been the, well then, okay, if you're going to go on that example, what kind of floods, droughts, rising temperatures has Guyana experienced in the last, let's say, 50 years? Has it been abnormally warm or more floods than usual? Or can you point from one to the other and say this is a direct cause?
Also, you're going to have to show me how droughts are not affecting the areas around Guyana either.
Yeah, like is it localized on a particular country, like at the borders the drought stops or something?
Yeah.
This is a pattern of suffering with a long history. The exploitation of our planet's natural resources has always been tied to the exploitation of people of color.
Okay, so as an example, China has not exploited the natural resources of this planet. Africa, name a country within, hasn't exploited the natural resources of this planet, either for good or ill, either sustainability or not. This is all about race.
Does he want us not to use the resources in the planet at all?
I don't know what he means, because civilizations don't exist or thrive without taking advantage of the natural resources around them. Everything does this. Some do it more conscientiously or wisely than others, certainly. But strip mining things that's not an idea that is restricted to a particular race or skin color or way of thinking.
Even location.
Or even location. Thank you, Frosted Glass. Have the Guyanese considered blessing the rains? Jeez.
Thanks, Frosted.
Thanks, Frosted. That makes everything better. Okay.
The logic of colonization was to extract valuable resources from our planet through force, paying no attention to its secondary effects.
And that has what to do with race. Name me a nation, a people, a culture on this planet that at one point or another has not practiced colonization, strip mining, taking advantage of resources, conquest, and so on.
Also, if you're going to have tribal warfare, isn't that colonization?
Yeah, that argument falls flat every single time. Every single time, because humans do these things.
Yeah, it's a person thing. It's not a racial thing.
Yeah, it's a human thing. It's got nothing to do with race. It's got nothing to do with skin color determines behavior or thought process or virtuousness. It doesn't. And every time it's brought up, it's like, look, it doesn't wash. You failed in your argument right before you even began. Thank you, Drew W. Cause water flows downhill first. Or is it because they're poor and haven't built defenses against rising tides?
Yeah, in which if that is the issue about the rising tides and the sea level going up, you move inwards. Apparently it's a mountainous area. Why would you not move towards the mountains?
Yeah, yeah, the layout of Guyana, I don't know, but if it's mountainous and so on, then yeah, the pepper jack's starting to hit my brain, guys. Can you imagine after all this that I'm still able to think clearly? Okay.
Nope.
Where are we on the board right now? We're only a couple away.
We're 2 away from a bingo.
Yeah, on
a
the
couple
bottom
different
level.
directions.
Okay.
In the middle.
We're about halfway through this talk, so let's keep going.
The climate crisis is, in a way, colonialism's natural conclusion.
Oh, for crying out loud. Really? Okay, tell me more.
The solution is to build a new coalition made up of all the groups most affected by this emergency.
Race war.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like, okay, well, but in your version of reality, then you need to exclude anyone who's white from this conversation because the real victims are everyone who isn't white. It's not a class thing. It's not a population issue.
It's a race thing only.
Heck, it's not even a regulation on pollution issue. No, it's all about race. Okay, thank you. This is Kyle. I would name a civilization, but they didn't survive long enough to be in the history books.
I don't know what that's in reference to.
I don't either, but Kyle knows something we don't.
Well, they didn't make it in the history books.
That's true. Thank you, Purple Pill Perspective. Yay, out of work. Entertain me with brain aids, Scribbles.
Hey, Purple.
Brain aid? That's what you think of this? I put all this time and effort into this show and you call it brain aids? Dude, thanks a lot, Purple Pill.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Man.
Jeez Louise.
How dare he?
How dare you? And thank you for your donation. Okay, so anyway, thank you, Drew W. Does he mention that China is colonizing Africa right now for their resources? Even if you're right, Drew, that doesn't matter because if you're of any,
racial,
because the only victims here are the ones he tells us they are based on their skin color. Everybody else,
apparently, they need to band together.
Yeah, so tell us about this coalition you want to build.
Mm-hmm. Black people in American cities who are already protesting that they cannot breathe.
That is a euphemism and often a badly used one.
You know, as a just a point with this, I've been talking with a few cops recently, and every single time they're arresting someone, not every single, the majority of the time they're arresting someone, if it ever gets to putting cuffs on someone, they immediately start yelling, "I can't breathe," and it's starting to make a lot of people ignore it at this point.
I can imagine the boy who cried wolf scenario, but
yeah,
how dare you talk to cops?
No, I'm the worst. Ignore my hat.
Why? Okay, if you're a cop ally, you're already suspect. I'm sorry.
Damn it.
Showing your bias.
People of color in Guyana watching sea levels rise to the point where many of their homes become uninhabitable.
Okay, I don't know how much have the sea levels risen in Guyana again over the last 50 years. I mean, is there really a abnormal rise in sea levels? Can the rise in sea levels be drawn a line drawn specifically from them to action anywhere else on the planet? I mean, don't get me wrong. We something that happens in America doesn't just stay in America when it comes to the environment.
Right. There's a butterfly effect.
It spreads out. If you dump a bunch of toxic waste off the coast of California, in minute quantities, certainly some of that's going to reach other shores. Fine. Right. Okay. So,
that's the other thing too, because he's bringing up as a climate crisis or as a has he said the phrase global warming yet, or saying environmental?
Well, global. I don't know if he says climate change. He's talked about temperatures.
All right, climate change then.
Yeah.
How much? I'm curious how much of this is actually and I've seen arguments either side for it, but how much of this is actually a human cause and not a natural cause?
That part, I'm sure that there are people in the chat who know more about it than I do.
I bet.
All I know is that as far as I've been growing up, I've been hearing about you don't hear this phrase very often, the greenhouse effect. You don't hear that very often, but the greenhouse effect.
I've never heard it actually.
Yeah, greenhouse effect, global warming, climate change. They're all effectively synonyms.
Right.
The greenhouse effect.
If you use one over the other, it's offensive.
Yeah, greenhouse effect was, as I grew up learning about it, all the bad stuff goes in the air. It creates sort of like this fog/shield over the planet. The sunlight comes in, but then it can't escape again. And as a result, you have a greenhouse effect where you have those, opaque panels in your greenhouse where it heats up and it becomes warmer over time. And
Yeah,
so,
it's glassing a planet.
yeah. So that's
So
the
it's Mass
greenhouse.
Effect.
I grew up with greenhouse effect. So that's how I understand it mostly. But regardless, I heard about this stuff when I was a little kid, and I was told back when I was a little kid that we were going to be beyond the point of no return by 1997 or something, and then it was 2000, and then it was keep pushing it out until the point of no return. Now it's I don't know what it's supposed to be now, 2025 or something.
In the chat there, Humble Clay's got some information on Guyana's sea level. Seawall, 280-mile seawall that runs along much of Guyana's coast to protect settlements in the coastal areas of Guyana, most of which are below sea level at high tide. So they've accounted for the water rises at night.
Okay, so that doesn't say that the water isn't rising, just that they've taken precautions to try to mitigate its effect.
Which is what you do.
Yeah.
That's humans adapt to that sort of thing.
Like, okay, all right. You know what? For the sake of argument, I believe that human beings produce pollution. I don't think I'm controversial in saying that. I believe that this pollution on the environment changes things as if in a way that would not be so if it weren't present. I believe that totally as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. So given the fact that we cannot take back the pollution we've produced
done already,
as human beings to this point, and since I've been told again that the pollution we've produced to this point is a point of no return, you can't undo it. Okay, I'll believe you. What does this have to do with race? How does race as a factor lead into the solution?
Right.
Okay, because if you're going to bring up race as a factor rather than talking about human behavior or regulation,
even geographic area, I can see that being an argument.
Sure, maybe, yeah, but regardless, what is the solution? How does race specifically play a part in the solution? If you're saying that race is either the problem or the inherent targeted consequence of the problem. Thank you, Jacoby. Amazing that the sea rises in Africa, but New Orleans is still safe. How much has the sea risen in New Orleans? I mean, the waters don't just flow to one shore and never to another. So what's been the sea level rise in Louisiana or Florida or California? I mean, I don't know. I guess different structures underneath the ocean could change how much it rises one to the other, or create a bowl or something, I guess. But I'm getting off base because my brain's going in 7 directions. I'm trying to compensate for what our speaker is not telling us, which is always
It's a lie.
It's a bad idea to try to do that.
Young people in places like Tottenham, London, afraid of the world that they will grow old in.
I wonder why they're afraid of the world. Is it because fearmongers like you keep telling them to be scared?
Yeah, it's how you rise to power.
I mean,
fear.
Maybe I'm being a little cynical, but God knows
that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And progressive allies from all nations, of all races, religions, creeds, and ages on their side, all demanding recognition.
Well, but are they including all races? Because you already told us that the white politicians who were focusing on this before you even decided to make it an issue weren't including you in an issue you didn't care about. So again,
that's the interesting part. It's like, is any help okay, or is it only if you justify it and mark it as okay?
If he subtracted race as an element from any of this presentation, I probably have very little to question or ask about, but he's not. Right. And he still hasn't told us specifically why. Like, what is the mechanism that targets people with a different skin color from anyone else when it comes to the effects of climate change or environmental effects or pollution effects? What is that pathway? What is the conspiracy? How does that work? How does pollution target demographics of race?
And I'm curious if we're going to actually get this answered at some point, and I imagine probably won't, but what does he want us to do about it?
Right. And that's always the thing with these TEDx's. You've presented a problem. Okay, you spent the last nearly 5 minutes of a 10-minute talk presenting us with the problem. Okay, this is the point at which in the essay, if you're writing an essay on this, where you'd start easing towards, okay, now that I've set it all up, here's what I suggest happen next. Okay, so given his reality where racial demographics are targeted by pollution in a non-coincidental way because it's somehow planned or engineered, What's your solution?
Yeah,
Climate-
he walked away from that part about it being kind of a planned or coordinated thing. He was kind of directly talking about that.
Yeah, he mentioned that offhandedly and then moved on.
I want to see where I want to see where that line of thinking goes.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens with a lot of these TEDx talks. They'll say something that's exceedingly profound or accusatory, which whether
Like
I believe
buzzwords.
it or not, I would love to know what their evidence is, and then they never come back to it. So
Justice is linked to racial justice, social justice, and intergenerational justice.
How?
Too.
What?
And let me say something about how we build this new movement.
Oh, okay. Movement to do what against? Like, what exactly is the solution? But okay, you want to build a new movement. How? I'll take a how you build the movement, even though you haven't told us what the end goal is or method by which you're going to change things.
And what it must look like.
Mhm.
First, we need a recognition that the climate movement is not only about protecting the planet, it is primarily about caring for the people who live on the planet.
How is that? How are those two things disassociated from one another?
I was gonna say I'll give him a point there. That should be what we're wanting to happen, right? If we
Right.
want to better the planet for the residents of the planet and the planet itself. But it's,
Yeah, well, that okay. What he just did was, as I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, a distinction without a difference.
yeah, it was the same thing. He just repeated himself.
Okay, what we have to focus on is this. What we really have to focus on is the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You said absolutely nothing. I'm getting ready to circle word salad on that one.
I'm getting
alone.
close.
Globally, as well as nationally, we need to recognize structural imbalances and inequalities.
What
I
does
want
that
to circle
mean?
word salad now.
What does that mean? Because I mean, if you're looking, and again, I don't know UK that well, but in America, we have the EPA. Now,
Mhm.
the EPA, depending on who you are, what industry you're in, etc., is either a godsend or a nuisance. Regardless, the regulations that have been put in place because of the EPA, and I believe that was Nixon that founded the EPA, have bettered our environment overall over time, have improved quality of life for people, as the output of pollution, fines, and criminal actions taken against people who pollute and so on has effectively improved our living space as Americans over time. It's not perfect, never will be, but we're certainly a hell of a lot better off now than we were before the EPA.
Yes.
Okay, so we have recognized that. We have a whole agency in charge of helping with that, amongst many others subsidiary to that. Okay, we have a green movement in America, depending on, and again, your mileage may vary, no pun intended, depending on who's promoting said green movement or how they're promoting it. But the idea that we are somehow completely oblivious or not caring about the quality of our environment or have taken no steps towards improving it is nonsense. So saying, and again, I don't know what he's talking about in regards to UK. Maybe the UK has been just,
Maybe they've been ignoring it. Who knows?
maybe they've been ignoring it for years or not nearly as much as us. But either way, if you're talking globally, the Paris Accords, okay, even if you say the Paris Accords are completely useless and everything else, that in and of itself is a recognition by many countries of the issue of climate change, pollution, and so on. So
And
no one,
getting funding, so the country's actually trying to change it.
right. So you're not going to convince me that we are not recognizing, either as individual nations or as a world, the issue of climate change, pollution, carbon footprint, etc. You cannot convince me of that at this point. In the current year, that is nonsense to say that we're not recognizing it.
Actually, in the chat, Red X Pen has a good point there. They started changing the methods of determining average global temperature to start just showing increases. So instead of looking at, how things are as an average year to year, it's just it's more than it was before,
Right.
which isn't how we measure anything.
Right. You can't look at those things in aggregate and say, oh, this is how things are.
Right, and you have outliers and such anyway. So if you're starting to include that and go, well, see, we increased that much. There was 113 degrees that day. It's like, yeah, but there were fires going on.
Oh yeah, the devil's in the details. Just like with the wage gap. Look at this difference in earnings over a year by males versus females. Oh, there's a disparity, therefore sexism.
It's like, our hours the same? No.
Yeah, God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. It never works, but it always convinces someone who's either a true believer or not willing to think a little bit beyond the box that they're being put into. Anyway.
Precisely.
A radical green recovery plan should provide jobs to the people
How?
who've
Why
been
do things always have to be
disenfranchised
radical?
for centuries.
All right.
Why does everything always have to be radical?
Because it sounds
Is it just a buzzword?
awesome and tubular, dude.
Totally.
New jobs planting trees, insulating buildings, and working on green technology.
Planting trees, insulating buildings. Okay, you know, if you guys in the UK or even in America, if you wanted to start a public works project, especially now under the pandemic with so many people out of work, if you wanted to start a public works project of planting trees or doing forestry management or something, or whatever, anything en masse to help improve the environment or prevent future natural catastrophes, or at least mitigate the extent of them, I'm all for that. Insulating buildings? Okay. Where are you going to get the funding for this? What buildings need to be insulated? Every building on the planet needs to be insulated to do what? And by the way,
who pays for that?
Well, not only who pays for that, but how much energy, how much carbon footprint is going to be generated in producing the insulation?
You know, and that's the thing too. So I'm an electrician in San Francisco. I work. They try to push the solar panel stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And the stuff like us that actually know how those are made and what they produce is that any bit that it's saving, there's so much more carbon being put into just getting the material to make these solar panels, and we still have a way to properly dispose of them.
Yeah.
And it's a toxic thing once they're unusable and it's just ignored.
I mean, I could deal with an argument that says, producing the amount of solar panels we'd need. Let's just say California's an example. If we would need to produce this many solar panels on this many buildings in order to just meet the electricity necessity of Californians today, and it's going to be some ridiculous number.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be insane.
And they could say, and if they were honest and said, now the production of this amount of solar panels would create this amount of pollution. And I'd be like, okay. And then if they said, but with this many solar panels in place and producing electricity over the course of X period of time.
If it offsets it.
Yeah, we will have effectively offset, and as far as carbon footprint is concerned, paid for itself by X year or something. Because everything comes with a cost. If you could argue that to me and you could be honest with me about it, because don't tell me that insulating every building is going to produce zero emissions in the process. You're not only talking about producing the actual insulation, gathering the materials to make it, the processing to create it, and then, of course, the delivery methods to get it from point A to point B, and then everything spent in between and getting it actually installed. If you can be honest with me and say, if we insulate every building, it's going to cause this amount of damage, but in our lifetime, it's going to save us this much of a problem.
Well, also, if the insulation's for a carbon thing, the carbon's still being created, where's it going?
Well, yeah.
Is it just what you're insulating it to keep it inside until a door or a window is opened?
Yeah, and not only this guy, obviously, but just in politicians in general. Just give me the straight answer. Just give me the straight, honest reality.
That's not going to happen.
I know. It doesn't always have to be rainbow and sunshine. Maybe I'm just at an age now where I'm so cynical that I'd appreciate a flat, sort of like a brutal honesty over just having everything sugar-coated for me. So,
I mean, I'm 23 and I'm at that point.
Well, I think the social media has sort of like sped up people's exposure to the worst parts of human existence.
Well, it's also just increased communication and information movement.
Yeah, that too. And there are pluses and minuses to that, I suppose.
Yep.
Anyway, moving on.
We cannot tackle the climate crisis without addressing racial inequality.
Why? How? You still haven't made the connection between one or the other. You said that one is racial justice, or injustice more likely, is an effect of climate change. Climate change is adversely and disproportionately affecting certain racial demographics. Okay, so how do you address the one if it is effectively a collateral effect of the first?
Do you think he's ever going to connect it, or he's just going to
don't
infer
know.
that they're connected?
He's got less than 4 minutes.
And we cannot solve racial inequalities without fixing the economic system.
Why? Why?
The economic system. Okay, well, how are you going to fix the economic system then? Tell us.
By taking it.
If one, so the economic system has to be fixed before racial justice can be fixed, and racial justice needs to be fixed before climate justice can be fixed. Okay, so gradually we're getting to the root, or at least the starting point. So, okay.
Of a connection, yeah.
How do we solve the economic justice problem? Because obviously that's the starting point. Everything else is secondary because you got to get that one done first. So, David Lammy, Labor Party, tell me how you fix the economic justice problem. Because everything else, I guess, at this point is as an afterthought. We got to start with that.
The New Deal the economy needs is not only green, it's green and black.
Oh, for
Oh my
wow.
God. Is green becoming a buzzword? I'm not saying he's trying to coin it, but is it just becoming a buzzword where you say green and it's supposed to automatically mean good or positive?
Well, I mean, green has always meant good and positive, sort of at a lizard brain level. It's plant life, it's growth, it's
envy and jealousy.
Healthy, yeah, envy and jealousy. Sorry, but yeah. Okay.
Second,
okay.
We need more black leaders.
Just because they're black?
In general.
Okay.
It cannot be right in 2020.
In the current year.
How dare it?
Almost all the leading climate change activists we recognize are white.
What does that have to do with anything? If I could make something about race that's for no reason, more than I would, it wouldn't matter. Why is that important?
You know, and that's the other thing. Science isn't based on a consensus, because there was a consensus that the world was flat and that we didn't have gravity and we were the center of the universe, and that was incorrect.
Yeah, and then what was it? Was it Copernicus that was burned at the stake or something for saying otherwise? Yeah.
Yeah, and then yep.
Okay, so why, David Lammy? Why is that important? Why is something that affects people, humankind in general? Why does it matter that the people talking about it, concerned with it, working on it, which you obviously weren't to a certain point, and the only people that were white? Shouldn't you be like giving some kind of thanks or deference to the people, regardless of their skin color, who were focused on this before you realized it should be something to focus on? Or are you just like jealous? You're trying to make up for lost time in your division?
Well, I think it might be. Remember, he was upset that he wasn't invited to talk about it with all the white people who were already working on it.
Yeah, you couldn't just get up and say, "Hey, I am interested in this too. Could I talk about this?"
Yeah, I'm green and black. I can talk about it.
Yeah, his tie is. So there you go.
At Davos this year, 5 young female members of the Fridays for Future movement came together to give a press conference at the World Economic Forum.
What does their gender have to do?
Oh, it's Greta.
Oh, Greta.
Greta, it's been so long.
God, I haven't heard much about Greta lately. We've been so overtaken with election stuff. Oh boy, what's Greta been up to?
This is a picture the Associated Press.
Wow, 4 individuals, at least. It's hard to say, but none of which I'm assuming are over the age of 25.
It doesn't look it, but
I could be wrong. But yeah.
No, I'm just judging.
Yeah, so who have the life experience of a high schooler at best, maybe early college. And I'm supposed to listen to these 4 people regarding climate science and serious issues that they haven't themselves been fed by adults who have an agenda. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. He's hammered on so much on the race card. I ask after you circle the makes it about race square that you circle every square around it as well.
Now, Mr. Tickletrunk, we might be hitting feminism soon. I'm feeling it.
Yeah,
very soon.
I was about to say, it's like, we might have a couple others who have to circle here pretty quick, but
I still might see that argument for word salad by this point, because he's done it about 6 times.
Yeah, no, trust me. By the end of this, barring
he'll be done.
A much more clear example in aggregate, we'll be getting word salad for sure. Okay.
No anecdotes, at least. That's nice.
Now no anecdotes that sound, improbable. Let's say.
Yeah.
Here is the original image.
What?
Oh, he's saying the image was cropped so that they could just make it so it was.
Oh, okay.
But they might. I could see that even being a thing where it's trying to push not a white thing, but a younger thing. That gal looks a little older.
Okay, I want to get the
forum.
Yep.
This is a picture the Associated Press put out.
Okay, the Associated Press put out.
All right.
Here is the original image.
So the Associated Press is racist.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Got it.
No, kidding.
As the Ugandan activist Vanessa Nakate herself put it afterwards, you didn't just erase a photo, you erased a continent.
Well, I have no idea why if he's correct, and for the sake of argument, I'll assume he's correct. I don't know why the Associated Press did that. You'd have to ask them.
I'd have to see if it was if they were trying to do a focus story, maybe. But still, I don't know why they would.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me, but if somebody in the chat can tell me otherwise, like I would assume that after being called out on this, the AP probably apologized and so on. I could see that. So I'm not going to say it's an anecdote that probably never happened.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to. All this also, I don't know if it's really anecdotal yet.
It sounds very, very specific to have been somehow made up. So
right,
we need to look at who is being cropped out of leadership positions in environmental organizations too.
Well, okay, even if the AP decided to crop her out of the photo, she was still there and involved in the process. So how does an AP decision on a photograph reflect her not really being involved in theirs?
I'm also not going to call these children environmental experts still.
It's still not, yeah.
Yeah.
People of color make up around 40% of the United States population.
Sure, but you were focused very specifically on African Americans in the U.S. earlier. So, okay, now you're spreading.
Numbers shock people, you see.
I guess.
So why is it a University of Michigan study found that the percentage of minorities in leadership positions in U.S. environmental organizations is less than 12%?
Leadership positions in environmental organizations. You're winnowing down the odds there a lot.
Also, nothing ever is proportionate, not realistically for people's personal decisions. That's it's people's personal choice.
Okay, so let me back up slightly. I don't want to hear that one more time.
States population. So why is it a University of Michigan study found that the percentage of minorities in leadership positions in U.S. environmental organizations is less than 12%?
Another thing, why does it matter if it's a leadership position as opposed to just a member position?
Yeah, what are the demographics of these organizations in general? And if you are saying what I think you're saying, please tell me which organizations are inherently racist because the person at the top is not of the kind of skin color that you prefer.
And also, does that make it better?
If climate whatever is supposed to be helping everybody, including people of color, because they're the most effective,
who's doing it.
Then isn't the organization's success rate or their initiatives or what they're doing, isn't that more important than the skin color of the person at the top? What does a white person at the top of a climate organization that is trying to help improve climate change for the world, how is that worse than someone at the top who is of a skin color you approve? It
seems like this whole time he's more worried about appearance than actual action.
Well, so far he hasn't told us anything about content of an individual, just color of an individual. So,
global organizations should consider moving their headquarters to the global south and urban areas that are most affected by the climate emergency.
What if they can't afford? Do you know how much funding these places get compared to like the NRA or something else? Just move your headquarters somewhere.
Also, most of those places are in those locations because those people that are working there are around that area. So you're going to force all these people to move and change location, and the carbon output from that's just going to be crazy.
So the people running the climate organizations in Michigan, as you mentioned, they should just move to the global south. Using what money? Uproot their entire lives to go to what? Australia or something? What do you?
Well, because it's not about he doesn't actually give a shit if anything changes, but he just wants the demographic to change or the appearance.
I'm circling word salad. I mean,
I agree.
If not in specific and aggregate at this point, we're definitely
close enough. Yep.
Okay.
There should be new scholarships and bursaries in environmental science for people of color.
So
Why?
you want scholarships specifically aimed at people with a specific skin color. How would you feel about a scholarship that was for only white people?
You know, and I've seen this a lot because I've heard, yeah, you know, there's the historic black colleges and such, and I'm like, if you ever saw a historic white college, I don't know how quickly people would freak out and start screaming about that. But it doesn't tend to be good when we add these descriptors for no reason.
All right, David Lammy, you're a politician. Why don't you? Maybe you have. Maybe you tried to send a bill or a legislation into process that will set aside some money for this. So,
What have you done?
Now, what have you done to achieve these goals? Might I ask?
Educate yourself. Join great movements that recognize the links between climate and race.
Okay, if there's a movement that tries to promote the link between climate and race, I'm going to be more wary of that organization than I would if they were just talking about climate.
Yeah, it seems when you start to split off more, it becomes like a Cheesecake Factory type of menu where it all just starts to get less and less useful and tasty.
To name a few, the Black Environment Network.
The Black Environment Network. Ben, are they big in the UK?
That was bad.
And Wretched of the Earth. And finally,
Wait. What was that last part? Sorry.
Is it wretched?
to name a few, the Black Environment Network and Wretched of the Earth.
Wretched
of the Earth.
Wretched of the what?
Now I know that's not direct, but we have wretchedness on the card.
No, that's not. No.
I know.
Is there an organization called Wretched of the Earth? That sounds
horrible branding.
That sounds terrible. That sounds like the most depressing organization ever. Okay.
I don't want to be as far away
And
as possible.
finally, racial injustice and climate injustice are both rooted in the evil notion that some lives are more important than others.
You've just told us. You've just spent the last 7 minutes telling us that there's some lives more important than others.
So at the same point in time that too many white people are working on this, they are
Wow, dude.
This hurts.
You're right. You know, the roots in this, that would be a bad notion. If you decide that some lives are more important than others on the basis of race, you're right. That would make you a racist. Tell me again how, because the leaders of these movements are white, that is bad. Seriously? Come on, man. I'm not that... let's see. Mark Gallagher, so the Wretched of the Earth. Is that really a thing? Okay.
I don't want to know, actually.
Kieverdam says contradicts own point or argument. Well, didn't we recircle that? No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. Not yet.
Okay, yep. Nope. I'm going to circle contradicts own point or argument because with that statement alone, he's just gone completely off the ranch.
It's fucking Nana.
If you march to say Black Lives Matter in Minneapolis, London, or Sydney, please also march for the Black lives on the Caribbean island of Haiti as its children are displaced by storms. Please also march for the Black lives being lost in Darfur, the first climate change conflict. And please also march for the indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest as Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro weakens its protections.
Okay, let's say you do the exact same march for all those things all at the same time.
I didn't realize when you march for Black Lives Matter, it's just the ones we talk about.
Yeah, or just
isn't it supposed to be generic?
I
know it's not, but
well, I guess it depends on what you're talking about as far as like the cause of the loss of Black lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because Black Lives Matter, generally speaking, and I'm speaking in generalities, concerns police. Or I should say deaths by police of Black people. That is the primary motivator of Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Even though, if I remember correctly, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Black Lives Matter actually grew up out of the Trayvon Martin shooting, which had nothing to do with police taking a life, but just Joe Random neighbor.
That is correct.
Taking a life.
And from the original person that started, he has claimed that the movement has been co-opted from that point.
Right. And so
actually back then I didn't see any violence from that group either. And I was paying quite a bit of attention to that story.
Yeah. So either way, sure. The same single march that just says Black Lives Matter, you could be talking about Black lives globally for any reason, anything that is disproportionate, anything that is okay. And that accomplishes what? Because so far, David Lammy, in all your rhetoric, I have not heard a single offering of either a step to take or a solution to aim for.
He even stepped away from explaining, because he was saying, he kept talking about how we need to see how this group looks and how the movement looks, and then he stepped away even from that.
Yeah. Okay. And so what, by people marching down a street, chanting Darfur and Guyana and onward and onward, what magic does that manifest in solving the problems you list? Speaking of which,
magic?
I'm going to circle a list because as far as I'm concerned, just listed off.
Yep. Different countries. And
all right, moving on.
If we are serious about protecting Black lives in the global South, as well as the North, we need to strengthen international laws.
How?
We need a way to apply international criminal laws like war crimes or crimes against humanity to the planet.
How?
No.
New international law of ecocide to criminalize the willful and widespread destruction of the environment. A law that criminalizes the most severe crimes against nature itself.
That's your solution.
As an American, I don't like these international forced laws without. I just don't like that. This New World Order stuff. I don't like it.
Ecocide. That is a law that, and again,
that sounds like a new word. I don't think I've ever heard that before, actually.
I haven't heard ecocide before, and just because I'm feeling generous and it doesn't really affect a whole heck of a lot. Attempt to find a new buzz phrase, circling that one. Ecocide. Hadn't heard that one. I'm sure it's not a new term. I'm sure he didn't make it up himself, but he's saying it should be new legislation. Okay. So are you intending to hold entire nations to account for the aggregate effect of various instances or corporations or things operating in the country then? And
I'm curious if he's trying to push a prosecution with this.
Well, he's talking about criminal. He's talking about...
That's right. You'd be threatening the lives of the entire world, wouldn't you?
He's talking about like war crimes on the same level with ecocide, which I would assume means like you're going to hang people for pollution. I guess
the Geneva Convention?
I don't know.
Even for acts that don't involve direct human suffering.
Whoa. What?
Do you know how many things are indirect?
What indirect acts that... You want to put war crimes up there with, or I should say, ecocide should be on the same level as war crimes, applied even to those indirect actions that... What?
This is like buying a candy bar is bad or buying a phone is bad because a child in China is what built it. Because wouldn't that be a indirect?
Yeah. Who sewed your suit? Where did the plastic come from for your microphone? Are you contributing to it simply by standing there and breathing? Oh, yeah, you are. Should you be held accountable for ecocide if somebody decides that Britain is putting out too much carbon per year?
Isn't there a carbon output to get any product in the world? Because you're breathing out anyways when you're working. So,
well, that's why we need to automate everything.
Of course.
Yeah, fewer humans means, fewer. Anyway.
Economics, race, and class are at the center of today's political struggles.
Oh, today's political struggle? I don't know, but I hate to tell you this. A couple million years of human history, which involve race, economics, etc. Seriously? Come on.
It's ridiculous.
The Black Lives Matter movement needs to wake up to climate injustices, just as the climate movement must make every effort to include the reality of people of color. Young Black boys growing up in single-parent households in Tottenham won't have the opportunities I had in a world ravaged by climate chaos.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
It's a need, apparently. You have to do it.
My distant cousins and relatives growing up in Guyana won't have a future if their homes are drowning underwater.
Probably shouldn't have homes near the water then.
Move inland? I don't know.
That's what I was saying. It's mountains.
Now is the time for Black and climate movements to come together unequivocally and say, we can't breathe. Thank you very much.
Well, what if the climate movement is run by white people? Are they allowed to participate? Or are you going to rail against them because they're not the right?
Is anything ever going to be enough?
I would need to know what exactly he's suggesting as a solution aside from ecocide laws.
International ecocide laws.
International global ecocide laws. Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the bingo card as I currently have it. Let's review it one more time here.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew Joyner. David Lammy has always been a race-obsessed twit. I can believe it.
I'm not surprised.
I believe this is the first time aside from his name, I think this is the first time I've ever heard him speak.
Same.
So I could believe it. Okay. Takes credit for something done, experienced by others in their demographic.
No. I don't think he's taking credit for anything.
No, I mean, he associated himself with his family members and so on, but it didn't feel like he was
taking credit.
It's not credit. It's sympathy for, systemic institutional.
I didn't hear the phrase.
I could see someone making an argument to me in chat for that one, but
I can see it too.
Yeah, off the top of my head, not an example in the chat. Equity. He never said
the word.
He said injustice.
Around it.
Yeah, he said injustice. He said inequality in places, but equity itself, no.
Right.
Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Now that one seems to me
didn't hear
like
anything about microaggressions.
Yeah, but unconscious bias was certainly implied in many, 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 many instances where he's talking about how, it's not a coincidence.
I'm okay filling that in. I feel like, yeah, you're right. He was talking about being conspiracy.
Yeah. So in aggregate,
I'll fill that in.
Yeah, I'm going to circle that one just on the basis of that it's not a coincidence and all the other implications. Patriarchy. He showed the picture of the 4 girls. Sorry,
but he didn't push it.
5 girls, but he didn't push the gender aspect, so I can't really.
Right.
Wage gap. He talked about economic justice,
but I don't think he mentioned. But
okay.
Same thing as he kind of talked around it.
Yeah, I'll leave that. Chat, give me a really good argument. I'm not unwilling to circle wage gap, but then he was feminism. He had the opportunity to, but he didn't. Just like patriarchy, I didn't hear anything specifically gendered to this. He did talk about black boys in top and but he was talking effectively about himself or someone like. So that wasn't a gender argument. He was just
it was just a argument.
Marginalization. I mean,
I could see an argument for it, but
he didn't say it, and he implied it all over the place that these. Yeah, and he talked about percentages.
I think we pushed it before. We want to see that word.
I'm gonna circle it just because he talked about the percentages and how this percentage of people
sounds good.
End up doing this. So I'm circling marginalized.
Sure thing.
White supremacy again.
He didn't say it, but he kind of implied it again with the
and I'm going to need a really good argument because this would make a bingo, and it's always down to where is this square going to make a bingo, and do I make an argument loosely? And in this one, I could see an argument being made. Chat.
I can think an argument actually really quick.
Go for it.
I think with his implication that you know how he was saying all these industries that have white leaders all run by or majority run by white people, and he was saying, and the fact that he's pushing as a conspiracy level, that it's trying to hurt the black community. I could see that being a semi argument as a white supremacy thing.
Okay, chat. You've heard Gino's argument. If you think that Gino holds weight enough to circle white supremacy, and be honest. I require you guys to be very pragmatic about this.
Oh, and there was a colonialism thing.
All right, that as well. If you think Gino's argument holds weight enough to circle white supremacy, put a 1 in the chat now. If you're not sure or you disagree, put 2. Okay, so 1, 4. If you're on the fence, it's got to be a 2 because we're talking about a bingo square here. So uncertainty leans towards no in my book. Self-vilification or wretchedness, he never did. He mentioned the word wretched, but that's no.
Wretched anecdote, of the earth.
Yeah, anecdote that probably never happened.
No.
He never gave us an anecdote that I inherently thought was untrue. The AP thing, I could believe it. The girl that died of asthma, I could believe it.
I could believe it, yeah.
We got 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 4 1 1 1 1 1
23
1 1 2 2 1 2 2 3 1.
Asian hippie skewing the results.
Yeah, just a little bit. Asian hippie, don't stuff the ballot box. I'm not the Republican.
Wait till the 4th.
Yeah. So we have. Let me try that again. 1 1 1 1 1 1 4 2 2 2 1 2 1 2. That's awfully close, relatively speaking.
Humble Clay's making the assertion that the AP never actually had that picture.
Oh.
Interesting. I will have to look into that later.
Okay. If someone can corroborate
It's hard to prove a negative.
It is difficult to prove it because if they had it up at one point and they took it down or they edited it or something else.
Right.
Yeah. So Green Dust says, I've seen more 1s than 2s. Nicholas Daly gives a 1. You know what? Between the implication of all the white leaders being bad, this is not a coincidence, and additionally the colonialism thing, I think I'm safe in saying that tips the balance. So with that, guys, if you can believe it, that brings us to...
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
We have ourselves first and probably only bingo.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a long way in getting there, and it was worth the effort, I think. Everything else, I'm challenged to think that anything else deserves to be circled.
I don't think so.
I mean, you can make an argument for systemic just on the basis of the things you talked about, countries and nations and laws and such. You can make an argument for wage gap because you talked about economies.
You made an argument for equity to a degree, but
yeah, the equity one is a steeper hill to climb.
Yes.
Because at this point, it's like that'd be another bingo, and he never said the word. So
I didn't see anything of patriarchy or feminism, self-vilification. He didn't talk badly about himself at all. So
yeah, and unless you can prove to me that the AP never used that video, or more specifically, never a photo, and more specifically, if they never cropped that photo, we're not going to get anecdote that probably never happened.
Yeah, and so I still even put that as an anecdote that probably never happened. It sounds like something that could happen. It's just that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like how much of this do I extend to outside of the talk itself versus the way that they presented or pitched their anecdote,
right? Or just personal bias. Even it's like.
Yeah. Advocast Daily says, "Scribe they did use it and they did crop it." Well, there you go. There you go. Okay. I have it. There we go. Seconded from there. So, there you go, guys. We did reach a bingo for this talk. Relatively short talk, but packed full of going nowhere arguments and facetious conclusions, as you might expect from such. Yeah. And by the way, this was a TED talk. I know that I didn't.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, this is an actual TED talk. So this was not a TEDx, but TEDx does cover more than just TEDx talks. Anything within the TED milieu is fair game. So TED Ed, TEDx, TED, etc. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Did he ever conflate race and climate? Did he ever actually?
He just associated. He didn't say that they were entwined. I mean, they were entwined in one affected the other, etc. But he never said like they meant the same. At least I didn't pick that up.
I didn't either.
But then I'm sure there's
because that would be the point of the talk. Was how they're connected.
There was a point? What? Oh, okay.
No, that would be the point.
But anyway, guys, I don't have anything else to say. And truth be told, and I told Gino before this, I got to go back to work after this. So it's better that I get going on that so I don't have too much of a horrible day tomorrow on the last day of the week, last day of the month. So in that selfish sense, Gino, do you have any final thoughts?
This was great. And it was nice hearing from everyone.
Yep. Gino, thank you so much for joining me. I know you have all the time in the world on your hands.
The most.
As damaged and broken as they are. But I appreciate you taking the time to join me for this. I hope it was everything you hoped for.
It was.
I'm sorry. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to follow Gino on Twitter, because you don't have a YouTube channel or nothing, do you?
Not yet. I might at some point. I have all the time in the world, so maybe a new skill to learn.
Keep an eye on @DuneBoy13, all one word on Twitter. Who knows? Gino might surprise us yet with a YouTube channel or here's my healing journey video logs. I can see that happening.
Here's my turning point.
Here's my turning point. No right on red. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your attendance, your participation. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. I'll go towards horrible things I'll put in my body, like goldfish crackers, Jack Daniels, Dr. Pepper, and maybe a sandwich. I think I'm kind of hungry right now.
Ooh, there you go.
If you would like to hear more from me or the Ranting Monkey or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find all three of us tonight on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Gino, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Have a great day, y'all.
Bye-bye, everybody.